It's Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is going to be just open-ended lecture tonight. I've covered the speed run on the swing trading portfolio on the Friday night lecture, and that's already posted at Patreon for your review. And there were no charts posted in Campfire, so I don't have any of your trade frames to review. So instead, what I thought I'd do is review some of the foundational concepts that have come to me from the true storytelling workshops and the body of knowledge that I've been working on for the past year. That's been a real commitment on my part to personal development and sense making, and so it was some very powerful ideas that I want to describe in a general way. I'm going to include these in the foundational lessons for the courses I'm going to start teaching in April for the Tharp Institute. I'm going to teach, I think, 4. I'm going to teach this foundations course, a day trading course, an updated swing trading course, and a hybrid trading course. So 3 separate technical workshops. And there will probably be like an hour-long lecture each night, maybe up to 90 minutes, along with some homework. And then I will do so I have like 4 1 to 2 hour lessons each week for each of those courses, one for each. And then a Q&A session that I do on Saturday. Of course, all the gold members will get the day trading and the swing trading and the foundations course just as part of your Patreon subscription, no extra charge. If you are a platinum member, then you'll get the hybrid course and the day trading and the swing trading and the foundations course at no extra charge. I'll be charging a separate fee for the folks that are not members, but who are coming from the Tharp Institute. But that'll essentially take, I think those are going to be 10 weeks long and 10 lessons. And then that's what that course will look like. So I'll be updating the materials as I go. But a lot of the things I was learning and working on and reflecting on in the True Story workshops really, I think, have a lot of payoff for us. So true storytelling is, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this stuff, get these ideas out on paper so that I can refine that for the foundations. Now, if you guys have any specific questions you'd like me to cover tonight, then just drop them in the chat, but I'm going to work through some of the foundational concepts. So the first couple ideas was this idea of, I think of it as roots, branches, leaves, and seeds. And so this idea takes the form that if we have a tree with 3 branches, I'm just going to call it like that, and then a bunch of leaves out in here, that in the nature of true storytelling, the stories that we have, the stories that we tell, do have deep connections in the past, from our roots, and which, at the level of identity. And what we can see in the surface, these branches are sort of the visible forms of structure and support that hold up the structure of the tree. And that the individual leaves are individual case studies or manifestations of our lived values in the world, individual stories, meetings with people, and that this tree, if it's a viable biological thing, has seeds that fall to the ground and then support the propagation of future forests. And so you get this expansion because of the seeds that are contained inside the stories that we make. In terms of trading, the trades that we make are these individual leaves. So those leaves are supported by concepts and infrastructure of the branches that hold up our practice in the world. But those things are anchored into the roots that go deep into the area of values, identities, and beliefs. And then the branches and the leaves are the manifestations. And then the lessons learned, the things that go forward, it's not just the capital and the results, but the things that we actually learn from those lessons become the start point for future trades and future systems and all that stuff. So this whole idea of the organic connection between pretty stable roots and branches, leaves, and seeds holds together really nicely. So in terms of our trading, I think of this as to me, the foundations course is going to be where I'm talking about things at the values, identity, beliefs, philosophy level that anchors everything into how I think the world works and the way the markets work and all that. And that the three distinct time frames that I trade in, I think of as the core, and swing trading, days and weeks of holding, and then day trading. Each of these are a separate branch of the trading philosophy, and that hybrid trading is something like that main visible branch that integrates all of those together. And so while you can, trade these as independent time frames with different systems and not participate maybe in the other shorter time frames or the longer time frames, each one is a standalone body of knowledge. There is some synergy that's available through the fractal nature of hybrid trading, and that there is information that can be exchanged in between those things. And so taken together, that whole visible part of the tree is hybrid trading, but all of that is sort of anchored into the foundations. So when I talk about, plan, prepare, execute, and assess, that's a foundational process. And we apply it in each of the three different time domains, core, swing, and day. And also when we're tripping back and forth between them in a hybrid fashion using the fractal nature of the markets, we're still engaged in planning, preparing, executing, and assessing. So that's a foundational process that manifests in all of those. And then when we assess, we're actually looking at the quality of the seeds that emerge from our practice and that which we can pay forward. So that's an example of roots, branches, leaves, and seeds in the context of sense making, but also applied specifically to the metaphor of trading as a organic, holistic process. Well, one of the things that happens, one of the earliest ideas that came to me was the idea of the walking man. Now, I'd had this idea before, but it really began to make more sense as I put it into the context of true storytelling. And so I think of the 5 ways of knowing, with the knowledge of the head, the heart, the gut, the hands, and the feet, within our operational space going forward. And this turned out to be a really powerful way for me to think about all the different ways we learn about the world and we try to act in the world, and why that's got to be integrated on our journey to the next true story circle, in which we're going to share what we know with other people that are involved in this roundabout. So the meeting place of traders. And we'll talk more about that in a second. So the knowledge of the head is that rational brain. the conceptual, the theoretical, the conscious, the explicit, the knowledge of the heart, which feels like the intuitive, or the values, the emotional, the intentional. And maybe the knowledge of the gut is more of a fear-based, large-scale emotional, practical, risk-based. It's concerned about what I don't know and what that next thing outside me, what's that thing outside my circle that's attacking me, and where can that go? The limits of my perception, what's hitting my screens. And that's the other side of that coin. So where your rational head might see the opportunity, and your heart knowledge might be say, yeah, that opportunity is going to be good for me because then I can apply it towards my objectives. The gut is concerned about where's the risk, what could go wrong, and that the fear, but maybe also the greed because I'm hungry, So there is this back and forth between that head and the gut. And the knowledge of our hands is the how to do it, the practical applied nature of performance in the world. I have the embodied knowledge of how to do things. And then the knowledge of the feet is the knowledge that allows us to traverse this path and endure all of the variables and the weather and the threats and the lessons learned and the underperformance and the people we meet and all that stuff, that how to endure on that path, the resilience to keep going. I might call it resilience and commitment, the journey, how to journey well, how to travel well. It's not enough to know just how to do things with your hands, but it's being able to do it every day, being able to just go to work. And so it seems like to me that we need all 5 of those ways of knowing in order to be a fully embodied person in the world. It's not enough just to know it with your head, but not your hands. Like if you know it in your head, but you can't do it with your hands, can we really say that you know that thing? And if you're just knee-jerk reacting, but don't know why, can we really say that it's you that knows that, or are you just responding to external, impacts on you? You're just reacting unconsciously. But if you can't go to work every day and endure and build up that body of knowledge and expertise, you don't have that endurance. Can we really say that you're prepared to work in the world? So that's the ideas of the 5 ways of knowing of the walking man, and that is the idea of that we are on a journey. So if we think about that true story as a roundabout, in the middle of that circle is a space in which we can do all of these R words: rest, recover, reflect, renew, reinvigorate, relate to each other, reconnoiter for the next one. So there's any number of ways that you can enter that roundabout. And then on that roundabout, you're doing all of those R words until it's time to leave the roundabout and go do what it is that you're going to do on that next path. So what I recognized during the true storytelling journey was that for this to be a really powerful place of collaborative learning and growth and good for the world, that the first thing we have to do is create a place of safety in that roundabout so that we can be free to do those other things. So that safety first. And so when you propose to make a community a practice, the first thing you have to do is say, while you're in this space, you are safe. And whatever you have to do to make it safe, you go ahead and make it safe. And then that the next thing that you do is that you have to have trust in that roundabout with the other people that you're walking with on that pathway. We have to be able to trust each other. about what we say and what we do, and being concerned about what's best for each other, and that advice that's given or insight shared comes from a place that is intended to be good for all and in support of positive values in the world, or like the Greek square of the good, the beautiful, the just, and the true. That's the four components of the Greek square. And if we have those four things, then we can be free, because we are in support of those four powerful values. So that's the basis for the trust that we have when we're walking together in that roundabout of true story. If we can have that safety and the trust, then it may be said that the truth can emerge. And the truth that comes out of these stories happens like this, that when we do our Saturday morning True Story Circle with the OWL members, we start with a story seed. Like this morning, it was teaching, giving, and receiving. So that story seed, we've all been thinking about that all week. And so we go deep into our own personal stories and think about what that means to us and how it's had an emotional impact on our life. And so, we have in our headspace, we have all these concepts floating around. And so this one just happened to be teaching, giving, and receiving. And so we reflect on what that has been in our lives all the way down into our roots. And then we come to the circle prepared to tell a short 3 to 5 minute story about what teaching, giving, and receiving means to us in our world. And so we enter that safe space where we trust each other, and then we take turns telling our true stories. And in that sacred story space, we're not giving advice or processing or challenging or advising anything. All we're doing is listening to the true testimony of another person's life experience about the seed story. So when I go into that circle and we're all sitting around that table, it's like the 80-20 rule. So I come to that circle from my walking man experience, and so I tell about 20% is my spoken commentary on the seed, but about 80% of it is unspoken, because I only have 3 to 5 minutes. So I put my little 20% on the table, and so does everybody else, and we listen carefully without judgment in deep listening. And so when we're done going around the circle, everybody's offered their little bit of insight about teaching, giving, and receiving. And when another person's telling their story, I'm listening to it in my head, but I can feel that little bright light of what it means to them come all the way down to my roots and in every little experience. And I'm learning a completely different impact of what teaching, giving, and receiving means to somebody else. So my understanding of that concept, which is formed from my stories, now gets subjected to all these other lights of truth. And I can feel that resonating all the way down. And when I come out of that thing, because I'm not trying to wait for my turn to speak, but I listen to what they think that means, that just goes up on a screen, and all the things that I would normally say get pushed to another screen. So it's like all of these other lights are shining down and allowing me to see other aspects of this concept of teaching, giving, and receiving. So instead of that being a static, two-dimensional concept, I really realize that that's just one facet of a gem that's rotating in time and space. And each little facet gives me new insights to what teaching and giving and receiving means to other people in their lives. And I can reflect on that. So after 7 or 8 or 15 people have had their chance on that story, I come out of that thing fully enriched with a deeper understanding of what all those ideas mean to me, with little triggers of things that I hadn't even thought of as I was preparing my stories. And all those things go on this outer screen for me to reflect on later. And I will, but not while we're in that sacred story space. While we're in that sacred story space, we're just listening to the truth of others. And we leave from there. So if we started with a place of safety with people that we can trust, and they're telling us the truth about that story seed that we are all collectively thinking about as we circumnavigate that roundabout, the final thing is that then the opportunity to reflect on this and to go do something in the world is the fourth element. So safety, trust, truth, and opportunity becomes an empowering potentiality of new insights and a new, deeper understanding of my own experience of that in the world. And so each week, we come in and we talk about one story seed, and then we talk about 4 or 5 other story seeds that we want to add to the list. As a result of going through those reflections, we have aha moments or things that we want to explore. And so we all put those onto the list, and then we vote. And then, we tally that up and we keep the running total from the last week, and whatever goes to the top of the list turns out to be the most important thing for us to talk about in the next week. And so we just keep repeating that process. And what happens is each week as we come into that circle and we start reflecting on these different seeds, we're actually getting a deeper understanding into our own lives and our own thinking and our own sense making. And it acts as a way to reintegrate and restory and re-understand and revisit, all of those R words, all of these different sense making moments in our lives with people that we can trust. And then what happens is, as a result of sharing those stories, those true stories from our lives, we get a deeper appreciation of the 3 and 4 dimensional beings that we're sharing space and time with on the world. We're not just, disembodied voices, or no, this is people that are acting in our own best interest and really building out the trusted space that is this collaborative learning environment, which just happens to be, also at times dealing with trading. But we're really just engaging on a human level in support of these things that are, the good, the true, the beautiful, and the just, so that we may be free. And this is really such a powerful and liberating and energizing experience that it's really the high point of my weekly, rituals. And so that mentality, that energy, when applied into the trading process as a way to unpack, the stories that are in you come to discover that there's really nothing to fear in your memories and your history, and you can explore these different facets and come to new understandings when you understand these powerful concepts that shape our worldview and see how many different meanings can be attached to the idea of teaching or giving and receiving. You end up finding that there are other ways that you can reinterpret the experiences you've had in your life, whether it's trading or otherwise. And then that gives you powerful new ideas about how to go forward in the world. The potential is really extraordinary. And so I want to cover that idea next. The idea of what happens when you add 1 degree of freedom. So if I have some kind of concept, a meta concept that has, let's see, 6 different variables. The numbers of combinations is 6 factorial. So if I have just 1 variable, there's 1 way of interpreting it. 2 is 2, 3 is 6, 4 is 24, 5 is 120, and then 6 is 720. Yeah. So you start getting, as you start going up the number, the curve starts looking like this. Each new insight that you add increases the size of this enormously. So when you have separate bodies of knowledge or separate concepts floating around on the surface of your consciousness that you're aware of, each one of these things is self-contained. What happens is that there is this space in between. This is a true story concept. There's a space in between where we don't get the insights from these other bodies of knowledge. We think of these bodies of knowledge as separate and distinct. So this dark space in between, I had a better way to do that. Yeah, this dark space in and around these things. Yeah, that's a better way to show that. Those are little free-form pieces and parts just of your life experiences, just waiting to be combined into a more comprehensive, integrated view of the world, right? Well, what happens when you get into that true story space is you start getting different angles and perspectives on how all of these things fit together. And you start realizing that, let's see if I get my, these little disembodied, unconnected parts of your life, you start realizing that there are connections between them. Oh, I never thought of it. I never really saw that connection before. So you start getting this powerful network effect of integrating bodies of knowledge that you never realized were connected before. Oh, it turns out that the way I was behaving in this environment is very much like that other one. So there's these deep connections. So now if I can add one new insight and make that connection, the number of new combinations and possibilities becomes factorial. And so what happens is the true storytelling as an operating environment, if I can put it that way, allows you to realize that this is really a three-dimensional object. It's really a great big bowl, and what you're just floating on the surface of your awareness up in here, seeing these connections. But this really goes down deep, and you have all these deep roots that are supporting this, like the unseen depths of the oceans that are providing support to the surface. And so true storytelling allows you to discover these deep connections in the unseen roots of things. So if I were to put that in, the deep below the surface are these deep roots that are supporting the visible, branches, which lead to these different leaves. And so true storytelling allows you to make all of these deep, deep connections. And so instead of you just having 6 ways to look at that, you add one more variable and make those connections. You just now have 24 new possibilities for the future. So as you watch the path that you traveled to come to that true story roundabout, and you start traversing around here, and you start becoming aware of all of the different ways that you might be interpreting things and recombining them into future possibilities, the opportunity to go explore new spaces and new pathways that you maybe never saw before until you were able to combine these different bodies of knowledge into new combinations and new potential stories. That's where you get this powerful geometric effect of true storytelling that unleashes many new possibilities. So you're not evolving incrementally with small scale. You're getting dramatic new possibilities as you look at the world in completely different ways. Well, that not only just happens inside your brain. So if your brain has all these bodies of knowledge and now suddenly you realize they are really part of a three-dimensional thing and you get this powerful unleashing of energy. Well, when you put together a true story network of people that come from diverse backgrounds and you start seeing they start telling the stories of the pathways from their life experiences and what they've learned, and you're only getting to see the 20% that they have time to reveal in the middle, but there's that unspoken 80%. The possibility of truthful communication and collaboration and cooperation and friendship that arises in that true story circle, a place of safety and trust and truth, you start getting tapped into all of these unforeseen potentials over here. And that's what really unleashes all of these deep-seated insights that you were just simply not aware of before, or didn't think of that concept in a different way. So this one word concept that you thought had that particular meaning, you suddenly realize that that thing has a lot of different possibilities and different meanings and reinterpretations. And that's where the power of the real energy of opportunity comes from. So when you get into those true story circles, and it's a place of safety and trust and truth, when you leave there, all you can see are these amazing opportunities and different potentials that you want to explore. Wow, that is a really invigorating, transformational moment when you realize the combinatorial power, the factorial power of just adding safety, trust, and truth to the numbers of opportunities, new insights in whatever it is that you're studying, whether it's trading or life experiences or whatever it may be. And that being able to share that powerful human experience with others really makes that an exciting possibility. So if you're in the sound of my voice and you'd like to come join us in the circle, all it takes is an email to me and we'll get you started. And all it takes is a 10-second introduction when we check in so people know who they're working with. And be prepared to tell a 3 to 5 minute story about that week's story seed and what it means to you in an emotionally meaningful way from your life experience. And we'll listen to it with silent, sacred respect. And when you're done telling your story, we just say, aho, you will find that the story you end up telling is different from the one you thought you were going to tell, because as you listen to other people's stories, it changes who you are and it changes the story you ultimately tell. And then you realize that story that you had is really just one way you told that story, and that thing really does have a life of its own, and you never tell the same story twice. You never step in the same river twice. And all of them are connected at a deep level to who you are at the identity level. But these individual stories become part of a beautiful mosaic of your life and the sense that you make out of the world. So as you start putting those pieces together, you get this emergent quality of who you are and what you stand for and where you're going, and where you are in life. It's really a transformational experience, and a satisfying one at deep levels. Sometimes it's profound, sometimes it's just satisfying and comfortable and helpful and refreshing. So that's what the true storytelling experience is like. And I see it very strongly connected to the way we trade, because trading is nothing more than just one of the manifestations of the things that we do in life. That might be my trading domain, but it is affected by all of these other pieces and parts of me and the things that I believe and the ways that I behave. And so trading is an integrated part of who I am, but it's also connected to who I am as a soccer coach and as a trading coach and as a planner, as a strategist, as a teacher, as a scholar. And so all of those things are connected in different parts of me. And I look for the ways I can integrate those. And true story turns out to be one of the powerful ways I can integrate all those different dimensions of my life. So I'm finding it to have a very powerful payoff for me as well, physically, emotionally, mentally, and practically. So that's what I want to say about true storytelling and the way that I see it helps discover those foundational elements. And whether you work with me or the Tharp Institute or both of us, Van says all the time that 90% of trading is psychological, and the remaining 10%, 90% of that is psychological. So it's all of that psychology that is connected deeply to our roots and then manifested in our structures and in our actions and in the things that we carry forward into the world in the form of seeds. All of that is run through that psychological aspect of who we are. And so true storytelling is a way to tap into that at a deep and fundamental level, and to create collaborative learning environments with your fellow traders. Very powerful edge, a very powerful tool, tremendous opportunity for us to learn and grow together. I mean, the real powerful breakthroughs we get through our style of trading come from the exchange of ideas and the exchange of stories. Like yesterday's opening 20 or 30 minutes was absolute gold, which started with a question from Betty to ask me to talk a little bit about volatility lately and how it all fits together. And then that collaboration turned out to be a really powerful lesson told in a new way that really resonated with people. So that's worth your attention. All right. I think that's everything I wanted to say for tonight. That's about a good hour. And so tomorrow, Sunday evening, we'll get back to more of the tactical lessons as we take a look at the patterns that you post in the chat room for discussion for day trading, and we'll do some more of that tomorrow. So that's what I wanted to say tonight about true storytelling and foundations. Pending, I don't see any questions in the room, so I'm going to stop the recording there and we'll get this published.